And the people there were diligently taking all of the microfilm that they had in store, and they were putting it online on Family Search, the free website that you can get access to. Now, that information has not been indexed yet, but you can search by image, and in the next few years, you're going to be able to go onto familysearch.org, and you're going to just be able to click a button and have access to just millions of, if not billions of records worldwide. But it's really important to go and visit offline repositories. Repositories are places where you get records to help you find information. Because even though Family Search, the Family History Museum, the Family History Library has all these records, there's still a lot of places, maybe on like a local level, that they haven't given that information to yet. So you're still gonna need to know how to do some on the ground genealogy work. So one of the things that you want to do is to try to figure out first, what do you want to know? A lot of times people go into genealogy and they think, okay, I'm just going to trace my family tree back as far as I can possibly go and be done with it. And I love hearing people tell me, I've already finished my family tree. And if you've been doing this a while, you know you are never finished researching your family tree. You will always find more dead people to keep you going. So the key really is finding out what you want to know and knowing what you want and where to look for this information. You're not going to go into a New York record collection looking for records from somebody from Kansas. Just as I wouldn't go into my brother's closet looking for my clothes, especially now because we don't even live in the same house, and that's so weird. So you really want to know, you really want to pinpoint what information you're trying to find out, and then figure out where you want to look for that information. That's also why it's really important, especially if you're looking for records in Europe, to really pinpoint the exact towns. I do a lot of Italian research, and you can spend hours looking for, Giuseppe Guidotti in one town. If you don't know where he is, you're going to take a really long time. You need to know the exact town that you're looking for to research the records to get the right individual. So we want to kind of dig up some research objectives, kind of focus our research. So a few research objectives you might want to go with is think about trace my maternal great-grandmother's line back 3 generations. Think about how you're going to do this. Where were those people coming from? What were the dates that they were coming from? All these things are going to help you find those records. Locate where in Ireland my family was from. So something like that, you're going to want to figure out who your immigrant ancestors were, when they came over to this country, who came over with them, where in Ireland were they coming from, when were they born, okay? So these are all things you're gonna wanna narrow down. Provide a direct link to my Patriot Revolutionary War ancestor. Obtain Italian citizenship through my paternal great-grandparents, discover who the unknown father was of my paternal great-great-grandmother. I pretty much have done all of these things just for myself. And with all these questions, I've had to look in different locations to find this, but the tools that I use are pretty much the same. Now, one of the things that I'm going to show you first later on is how to use the Family Search Wiki and Ancestry's card catalog. And that's going to help you figure out where to look for things. So just keep that in mind, and I'll get there in a second. So one of the first places that you want to look around is actually your own house. In your house, in your attic, in other people's attic. My family is tired of me like sneaking off into other rooms and just kind of going through photo albums and You know, I would love to just have access to my aunt's closet, but that might be weird if I'm pulling down staircases in the middle of a party and I'm sneaking upstairs. Um, People don't often realize the genealogy value that something has. My mom had my great grandpa had served in World War I, and my mom was actually using the, I guess it was where they had put the shells for the bombs in, the container, as a garbage pail. You know, and here's this beautiful, I think, a beautiful artifact. And, you know, she's just, you know, cleaning up stuff, throwing it in there, just really treating it like trash. So I have to grab it and repurpose it and everything. So, you know, look for things around that. Things like even jewelry. Um, if you find an old piece of jewelry, check out some old photos. See if anybody in those photos are wearing that, if you don't know who it belongs to. Old toys, take them to an antique dealer, get a year on them. Ask relatives. You know, just ask everybody. Even in things, I was going through some of my mom's old papers, and my mother is alive, just so you know, but I was just going through her papers, and I happened to come across my grandparents' 25th wedding anniversary photo album. And inside the 25th wedding anniversary photo album was a envelope that slipped out. And in it was a letter written by my great grandfather to my grandfather in the 60s, telling him that he was going to be selling the family farm that they had had in the family for 4 generations to the state of Pennsylvania, and it was going to be made into a state park. Um, and like, what a cool find. And like, using that information, I was able to go and find the land records in Pennsylvania that they had used to sell that land to the Pennsylvania State Park. So you never really know what's around. Check old letters, especially. Old letters are like such a treasure trove. And of course, just talk to people. I have a picture of here of two individuals talking. And a lot of times people always think, talk to the older person because they do know a lot. But I'm also going to challenge you, just talk to everybody. Be that person who goes to a party and people are like, oh God, here she comes. I need to walk away. She's going to ask me more questions about the family. Talk to everybody, because somebody might have a story that you don't know, or information that they're just sitting on top of. And a lot of times you'll hear, well, nobody ever asked me, so I never told anybody this. Now, long before the world of the internet, people would store their family tree in the family Bible. And if you have a family Bible, or if you have a Bible, a lot of times you can open it up and you'll see they give you a family tree to fill out. This can be an absolute great treasure. This image, it's kind of blown up, is my great grandfather's Bible from 1860. And in this Bible, he had written all of his children's places of birth, their date of birth. For one of them that had passed away, they wrote when he had died, their marriages, the churches that they were married in. All these great family events are on here. Now, a little caveat with this is sometimes people make mistakes. I know for a fact, and I had done this whole research paper on this, that my own great grandfather's information, his birthday was a day off. It happened that one of his siblings also shared, one of those birthdays was the 19th, one of it was the 20th. Whoever was writing it flipped them around. Now, this is a very common mistake, and I am guilty of it myself. I'll tell you a story when for my mother-in-law, you know, and here I am, I'm a genealogist. I have the keeper of all the records. I remember anybody who's died, their birthday, their death day, whatever. I made a calendar for my mother-in-law, a genealogy calendar. So I put all her ancestors and when they were born and all this stuff. You know, I'm really proud of myself. And she calls me and she's like, Sarah, you messed up Jimmy's birthday. Now, Jimmy's my husband. And I had put that he was born on January 3rd, but he's actually born on January 2nd. you know, and I put a big picture of him on, you know, actually, and I just said the date wrong. It's not January 3rd. It's November 3rd. Hello. His birthday's November 2nd. So people make mistakes, and just account for that when you're looking at this. But this is really a great jumping off point. It's just a real treasure if you can find a family Bible. So look around, ask siblings, ask cousins. This was given to me by my second cousin, and I don't even have the original copy of it because he has it in his possession. But really a great treasure. So a couple of things when you're talking about, so how do I know where to look for stuff? First, you want to make a list of facts that you already know, okay? Birth dates, death dates, family members, siblings, children. And then one of the best jumping off points that you can use are the census records that happen every 10 years. And I'm not sure what I know I do have I don't know if we have it scheduled for it. I have a program about how to really dive into the census records and read them. A really interesting thing that you want to keep in mind is that borders change, okay? I'm in Suffolk County, as I know a lot of people are here. Nassau County, which is right next door on Long Island, was once Suffolk County, okay? So you want to keep that in mind. Say you're looking for records the person said they were in Suffolk County, but that area is now Nassau County. So you want to be able to make sure that you're looking in the current place as also as the place that it once was. To do that, make sure you're researching your maps and your atlases, and also what's known as a gazetteer, which is you can find those online, especially for other countries. It'll tell you what a place was and what a place is. Again, that's called a gazetteer. There's Family Search Wiki, there's Cindy's List, there's Google. And we really want to exhaust the American records before we jump over into the other country. So I just want to hop over for a second. I'm just going to unscreen share myself. And while I do this, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to come in with any questions. Yeah, I see somebody raising their hand. Leslie, did you have a question? I think you're unmuted.
Okay. When you say keep a list of your facts, you mean just like in any form whatsoever?
I mean, ideally, it's like neatly organized on a family tree.
On a tree. And are there templates for trees?
There are. I mean, you can go online and get them. If you just Google family tree templates, there's also software. If you're not a person who feels comfortable having things online, I use the Family Tree Maker software, and that also syncs really nice with Ancestry and Family Search. You can go back and forth with that. And I'm just flipping over to the internet here. So one of the best ways when you're looking for things is you want to know where to look and what's available. So I like to go to the Family Search Wiki, okay? So you put that in Google. Everybody can see that, right? I'm looking at my Safari page, okay? And Family Search Wiki, I'll have a client that comes to me and says, I have a question about, I want to do Russian genealogy. Can you help me? Well, I don't know how to do Russian genealogy, but I do know how to get to the Family Search Wiki, which will tell me how to do it, okay? So you go to the Family Search and say, I want to just do something basic like New York genealogy, okay? Go to New York genealogy, right in the search, and I'm going to click on it, and it's going to tell me all the different step-by-step guides about how to do research, okay? It's going to tell me where I can go over here. If you look on the right, the certain record collections, okay? You can click on the counties that you're interested in. It'll give you the names of the counties. Now, I'm backing up here. Say I want to look at church records. Okay, I would click on church records. And then it's also going to give me some of the different religions that I might be interested in. So say I want to look at Catholic records. Okay, I click Catholic. And if I scroll down, they should be giving me the, you're usually here, where are you? Oh, okay. Local Catholic Church. Oh, here we go. They'll give you the addresses and the phone numbers of the diocese. Okay, these main record collections. So you can, again, Google them and you can find the addresses and the phone numbers of the places that you're interested in contacting. So say I want to do more of a geographical search. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here and say I want to research Suffolk County. Okay, I would click on Suffolk County. And you could see all the different places in Suffolk County, the different records that are available, okay, and where to go for them. So this here, if you know the Suffolk County courthouse, they give you the address right here. Sometimes they'll give you the phone number. They say it's in Riverhead, and you can go right to their website. Scroll down, it also tells you when each county started creating vital records. Okay, so if you're looking for a birth record in Suffolk County in 1820, you can look at this and figure out, okay, well, they didn't actually start creating birth records in Suffolk County until 1847. So I'm going to have to look somewhere else for those records. So you're not wasting your time. And again, it tells you that this is the parent county in Yorkshire. What they don't tell you is that Suffolk County was broken up into Nassau County. Okay, so you also might want to look at the neighboring counties to kind of see what the border changes were. They give you the towns. Da, 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 da. They also give you some, we'll scroll down here too, where you can find obituaries, probates. Oh, here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. Some of the cool repositories, some other places to look in Suffolk County that will have records that probably aren't going to be available on, or may not be available on Family Search or Ancestry. So they're giving us the historical library in Suffolk. Some of these, let's see if our library is on here. Oh wait, you guys are in Nassau, so sorry. But giving you, oh, you guys are in Suffolk? Because you guys are right on the border. Okay. I'm originally from Putnam, Westchester, so I'm still just learning the boundaries. So these are some of the places that hold genealogy records, and you can contact them, which is pretty cool. So you can do this. You can use Family Search Wiki for really any town or local area in the world. So it's really great. It gives you some really great listings. It's really great if you're doing American research, and also pretty thorough with European research too. So let me hop back over to the presentation. Any other questions? Well, I just showed you that little trick there. Okay. Da, 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 da. And put that back as a PowerPoint. I just got this 2 screens for my computer, so I'm still learning how to do the back and forth of that. Okay. So one of the best places to look for records, as you just saw in there, some of these records on the county level, on the state level, don't start until later on. In New York in particular, on the state level, New York State doesn't start keeping vital records until 1880. So you got to figure out ways to kind of make up for those missing time periods or missing records. One of the best ways of doing that are church records. Okay. So one of your first steps that you're going to do is look at the census record, identify your family, their location, and then go onto the computer and Google the churches in that area. Okay. You can I like to go to say if I'm, Googling, I live in Sound Beach, which is by Miller Place. So say if I'm doing research there, I would Google Catholic churches in Sound Beach, Miller Place, okay, and see what's available. I would go onto the website and I would see, okay, this church was established in 1975. So my family from the 1800s are not going to have their records here. And I would kind of play around with that. I would go onto the church websites. I'll even call them. I'll say, when was your church established? What was there? A thing to remember is that maybe your family is Protestant. You assume that they were Protestants from generations back. But you got to remember, people didn't have cars back then. And the weather wasn't always that great. So they might have just gone to church at the local church. They didn't want to have to walk 10 miles to go to a service. I was tracing this one family who moved all over the place. They pretty much went from New York out to California. And in each location they went, they switched religions. They were just whatever was closest. God's God, I guess. So, they were cool with that. Other people are diehard of one religion, and you may expect them to be going to church at the nearby church, but they get in their wagon or whatever was taking them, and they journey 30 miles every week to go to church, and then they come back. So keep that in mind, which is, people are crazy. You never know what they're going to do. So some things that you can learn in church records are when somebody was born, when they were baptized, and a lot of times people are baptized very close to when they were born, who their parents were, if they had confirmation, marriages, divorce records, also annulments, the deaths, godparents and sponsors. And keep in mind, a lot of these records, especially when you're dealing with Christian records, are going to be written in Latin. So, I kept finding this record for one of my ancestors. His name was Petri. And I was like, why is that? But it was actually Peter, but he was going under the Latin form. And they probably went by the regular Americanized version, but for church records, they're in the Latin form. So don't think they have two separate names. It's just the way that was written. So also you can find a lot of these records, if you want to kind of take an easier way to do this, is go to Google Books. Go to Google Books and check out, maybe I know like Pennsylvania church records. There's a whole collection of Catholic church records available on Google Books. And I have some of them in the bookshelf behind me here because I found that, and I needed to order it myself so I can continuously look through it. But a lot of these churches have put their information online through Google Books, images available, and also these historical libraries. So that's really fun, really cool to do. But I'm all for calling up church secretaries, asking them, hey, I think my family might be, born here, baptized here. Can you please check your records for me and send them to me? And they're really nice, and it's usually free. So, anything that's going to hurt is just going to lose you a few minutes, whether or not they're there or not. Talking again about historical records and genealogy. Each town in New York has, which I just found this out like a year ago, has their own town historian. So this person is usually very willing to help you and likes talking about the history of the town, the people in the town. There are town historical societies or also genealogy societies. Google it, see what's in that area that has that information. My family's from Pennsylvania, my mom's family, and I went up there one summer, pretty much sat in the courthouse, and I wasn't like going to prison. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I sat in the courthouse, and I also was sitting in these genealogy societies reading all these great books. And I found this book. It was just in there, wouldn't look like anything. It was it's from 1899. It was a 100-year anniversary of the church in the area, and they were doing little write-ups of the parishioners who went there. And in this write-up was my great 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 grandfather, Thomas Wills, and they talk about how his parents, who his parents were. They talked about that they were during the revolution. There's some other parts that wasn't in here, but and a really cool picture. What they didn't say that I later found out is when he was in his 90s, he was often found wandering naked around the neighbors' farms. So that seemed to get left out about the church history. But you can find things like that in these books. These genealogy societies, these historical societies, they also have access to the old newspapers and obituaries in the area. And I'm also going to add in libraries, because libraries also are all part of that have some really great stuff, especially for cemeteries that no longer are in existence or being maintained. The records for those cemeteries will often be sent over to these historical societies, these libraries who have them. Family Bibles, people will donate their family Bibles. They're like, I don't want to deal with this, but I feel weird throwing out a Bible. Here, town, you take it. So you can call them up and say, hey, do you have any information, any Bibles with the Gutmann family? See what they say. There's also something called a vertical file. A vertical file is basically one of these things, okay? And over the years, a town historian or whatever will get information on a family. So say the Gutmann family, my last name, and they'll put it inside one of these files. And they're pretty much often scraps of paper, articles from newspapers, whatever. But people will call and they'll say, hey, do you have a vertical file on this family? And they can go to their filing cabinet and see what they have. And then they can Xerox or scan, whatever you do these days, send them over to you. So you can do that by calling your historical society, your library, and usually they do have a fee of about $10 or $20 for a 2-hour search, which really, and they'll ask you if you want to become a member, which is usually like $10. And I usually do, because oftentimes once I have them find something, there's usually more things I want them to find. And it's cheaper if you become a member, and then you get like the newsletter, and who doesn't love mail that's not bills, right? So, I had just mentioned this before. You have the town and county historian. Call these people up. They can refer you to specific books and records. A lot of times the historical societies are, I won't say run by volunteers, but they're mainly consisting of volunteers, so they might not be as knowledgeable of what's available, where your town historian is going to be very familiar with some research collections and places to look, so they can kind of direct you in the right place. And you can find your town historian usually in the town page. Say that, or even just Google town historian of, for me, it's Brookhaven, to check it out there. Cemetery records, those are pretty cool. So cemetery records, you can often find where a person was buried on the free website Find a Grave, which also is connected and plays very nicely with Ancestry. And this is one of the things where I'm bored and I'm awake in the middle of the night. So I just start putting names into the Find a Grave website and look for my deceased ancestors or other people's deceased ancestors. And on Find a Grave, it's consistent of volunteers who go around cemeteries and they take pictures of tombstones and they input the information. So, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. So they put the information in there, and you can find on Find a Grave, say where somebody was buried. You can call up the cemetery and say, hey, I think there's this person here, Monica Warner. She died in 1880. Do you have any information on them? And they can go into their card catalog and they'll tell you usually the date that the person died, how old they were, Sometimes in these burial records, you'll have the parents' names. They could tell you who else is buried in the plot, who paid for the burial, um, who the funeral parlor was, the place of worship where the funeral had taken place, um, any symbols on the stone, if there's a headstone or footstone. Now, two things that are really important that you might bypass. One is if they mention the funeral parlor. Well, a really cool thing is that funeral parlors are usually passed down ownership for generations. And funeral parlors are not held to the same privacy standards as the government laws. So you can call up a funeral parlor and say, hey, this person was buried. I'm sorry, the body was prepared through you. Um, do you have any records on them? And they will go into their files. And sometimes they'll call you back like in a few days or a few hours. And they're pretty much reading you the exact information that's on the death certificate. So that just saved you a lot of money and you don't have to wait and find out the information that you need. Also, if they tell you where the funeral was held, maybe a church, you can then contact that church and ask them if they have any sacramental records on the family and get in touch that way. And then, of course, you can order a death record if they were being done at that time period, and you could look for an obituary. So a whole bunch of really great jumping off points here with that. This here was a funeral record I found on Fold 3. It was from World War. So in my family, my 91-year-old grandma remembers her uncle Albert had gone into the war, and he was killed in the Battle of Casino when his Jeep ran over a landmine. Now, as far as she knew, or anybody else in the family knew, his body had stayed in Italy. And a couple of years ago, I was poking around on Fold 3 and I found this record. Now, the family was from Yonkers, in Westchester. And I found that Albert's body had actually ended up over here in America and was right over in Pine Lawn. So I threw the kids in the car and we went to Pine Lawn, and I was the first person, according to Grandma, who was, hysterical crying when I told her this, whoever was able to visit Albert. So that was a really nice, just knowing that he was back in America and just to be able to do that. So that was a really nice thing. So you never know what kind of little surprises you can find. Treasures in the courthouse. If you remember, I said I spent a lot of time in the courthouse. And again, I didn't do anything wrong. But that is a place. The courthouse is where a lot of times your records are kept. Records that you can find in the courthouse. You have your land records, estate and probate. Those are really cool because if you find like a last will and testament or estate record, it's going to provide the names of the people who are going to be left things, and will also usually tell the relationship, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. They have the naturalization records, custody bonds. And custody bonds are not really necessarily when people are getting in trouble. I had found, actually, that guy who I showed you before, Thomas Wills, the one who was like running around the farms naked in his 90s. So when your children, if you were a mother and you passed away, your husband or the father of your children had to petition the court in order to get custody of the rightfully his children. That was a custody bond. And I had found a custody bond for one of Thomas's wives. And he had asked the court to give him custody of his own children after his wife had passed. So you can find something like that, which is, kind of crazy that they would do that. They also have tax records, your vital records sometimes are found there. In, our area, they're kept at the town clerk's office. In other places, they're in the orphans court office, which really has nothing to do with orphans. Very deceiving name. Some courthouses now, because of COVID, nobody's really allowed in who doesn't work there. So they have been a little bit more lax on their rules about sending people information. But prior to that, a lot of courthouses would only allow you to go on site to get the records. And if you weren't on site, you would have to find somebody, maybe a local genealogist, to go and get those records for you. So, if anybody needs it, I know the company I work with, Legacy Tree, we have people that do that. So there are people out there who do those things. So I had talked about before a naturalization record. Naturalization records were often kept on the local level before they became on the federal level. This is my great grandpa's naturalization record. They have the names, addresses, physical description, place of birth, your arrival, the name of the ship, if the person was married or not, their children, their picture, signature, and the witness. So a lot of times you can find these records in a courthouse. This record in particular was not in a courthouse, it was in a historical society. Actually, it was in the Westchester Archives. So this is something that you would be able to find, that this is not available online. It was in the archives for on the local area. So again, you can get this. Check courthouses. Yes, I see a hand raised.
How early did those start?
They started in 1819. They started becoming more mandatory, but they start having records. Say you have family coming over in colonial times, those weren't mandated, but those records of like a boat where a captain's writing down the passenger list, they would be found in a historical society in most cases.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Now, another thing, if you don't have the time or the energy to be going to local courthouses and you want a naturalization record, write this down, the NARA, the National Archives, and you can request a vital record. I'm sorry, you can request a naturalization record. They're also available, and I'll put this on the chat for you too, at the USCIS, which is the United States Citizen Immigration Services. You can request them there. Now, that is going to cost you, if you do it that way, about $120 per document. That price was raised about $100 in the past 2 years. So that's a little crazy. But this record that I got from the Westchester Archives was totally free. So there's always ways to get things for cheaper. Land deeds. Land deeds are the earliest records that we have in this country. They start in colonial times. You have land deeds from England that have been granted to these early settlers. We have colonial grants, what's called headright grants, the Homestead Act, military land grants for people's service in the Revolutionary War. They got land, and a land record is a lot more interesting than they are today. When I had sold my condo, I was like super disappointed that nobody was asking me about like, sell it and like why I chose the colors I did. Land records back then were like, and then I gave her a goat for her birthday, and we have 20 parcels of land, and on this side there's a tree with a flower. Really descriptive. Mentions like everybody who ever met these people in these land records. So again, they're often saying relationships. So it's a good way of saying, okay, this person, transferred land to this person, and owning that relationship in these land records. And these are often available in the local courthouse, okay, in land records. And I do find that, yeah.
Another question, do they record leased land? Or is that personal? So if someone leased farmland or whatever in colonial times, would that be?
Fantastic question. I know they don't keep like if somebody's renting something, they don't keep that. I mean, you could always, and who knows if it varies by town. I would call up the town land records and ask them. And I find like, and I hope nobody works here for the land record things, but I find they're a little bit crankier than other divisions, but they got a lot going on. Real estate's a hot market. So that's another thing. Probate records, estate records, they're going to be naming what's important to the individual and who's important to the individual. If a person, people back then would itemize every single item they had. Candlesticks, spoons, like the rickety old, wheelbarrow wheel that they found. I can't imagine doing that right now. I didn't even like cleaning up my kids' toys. Like I can't imagine making an inventory of all the stuff that I have in my house. But from seeing that, you can see what a person's occupation was, maybe get a sense of how much money they had. Oftentimes the people would say they would leave 10% of their inheritance to so-and-so's church for them to say a prayer in repose of their soul. And I'd be pretty mad if I was the descendant and like, but you can kind of see that they'll say, one thing to be aware of is they will often name the next of kin, and they might put something like my brother, my son, and it might not necessarily be a brother or a son. It could be a brother-in-law, a son-in-law, so, or someone they think of like a brother.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Sarah? Going back a couple of pages to
Sure.
the naturalization, I am trying to find records for my grandfather when he came to America in the early 1900s, and to Ellis Island and whatever. There is no mention of him and his brother anywhere. So I see the naturalization records. Do they always include the ship that they came over on?
Pretty much. And a lot of times they will come up, and I would get up right now and show you this, but I'm like wearing pajama pants. A lot of times they can find the actual ticket for the ship that they came on. And they have that. And I have that actual ticket that they had for my ancestors. It was part of the naturalization record. So that's kind of cool. What I would do is make a request through, do you know where they were? Like, where did they live?
Yeah, they were either in the Bronx at
Okay.
one point and then in Brooklyn.
Okay. So you can contact the New York Archives, the New York National Archives, and they can tell you, don't pay them any money yet. Talk to somebody on the phone and ask them which record collection to check and if you can get access to that. Because a lot of times they'll say that, and how can you order an index search with a record? So you want to actually index search with a record. Because sometimes people spell their names so wrong on these passenger lists, and you're having, really nice people who are volunteering transcribe this, and it's so botched up that it's not being picked up. Another thing to do, and I just kind of learned this, is just kind of cool. So all those genealogy sites like Family Search, Ellis Island, Ancestry, they're all paying separate individuals to transcribe stuff. So a record might, to an E might look like an I to somebody else. So you may find them, and like, say you're not looking, it's not coming up in the Ellis Island search. Maybe it's coming up on Ancestry because the person who they have transcribing it is picking it up a different way. So it's going to come up in your physical search that way. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I've
It's
done
really
a
weird.
few different things, and it's just astounds me that they came and went twice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no record of them coming or going. And it's
if
weird.
you get the record for the naturalization, it should tell you which ship times they went back and forth on. And I just was looking at one record, and it even told me the ship they went back over to Italy in.
Yeah, that I'd like to do. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, Judy.
Just to prove that I have been listening to all of your programs. Didn't you
Sure.
tell us once before that some people entered through other spots besides Ellis Island?
Yes, thank you. Yes. There's
Left
5
finger.
different ports. You get the gold star. Yeah, there's 5 different main ports. So there's Boston, New York, New Orleans, Angel Island in California. What was the other one? Maryland, maybe? I'm like totally forgetting right now. And also Canada, because sometimes Canada,
I was going to ask about Canada.
Mhm,
I
the best-
believe one of my parents might have come through that way.
Okay, yeah, on Ancestry, they have the Canadian passage list. Because one of the reasons they did that is because America at certain times put these limits, the quota acts for certain countries. So people would go and either maybe they would travel in Europe to the country, another country and leave from there, or they would come into Canada. A lot of Italians also took a boat from Italy to Buenos Aires, and then, which I'm sure they didn't look at a map. Like, because I can't imagine they would look at a map and then be like, this is a great idea, and then shoot up over that way. So hopefully that helps a little bit to get you started. So looking at vital records. Okay, here's another little money saving secret. If you go and say you want to like order some vital records, birth, marriage, death in New York. Okay. If you go and you Google, I want to order blah, blah, blah. It's going to give you to this website, Vital Check. Vital Check is good. It is pretty much in charge of all the vital records for the majority of the states. Now, if you order a record from Vital Check, you can expect to pay about $70 per record. That's a lot of records, and that's a lot of money. However, if you know the exact town or county, you can call them up directly, go to their website, and usually they'll have like a form like request a record, and it's about $5, at most 10. Okay. And they'll like apologize. Well, it's $10. I'm really sorry. And you can be like, oh, that's all right. That's all right. And it might take a little bit longer, but they're dead, so they're not going anywhere. But it saves you money. So vital records, birth, marriage, death, divorce. There is a 100-year privacy law on a divorce record. Don't even bother trying to get a divorce record, because you're really going to have to like jump through fire. And you're just going to pull your hair out.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Now, another big thing to know is the difference between a genealogy copy and a certified copy. In the most cases, you're going to just be able to use a genealogy copy, okay? And with a genealogy copy, a lot of times you don't have to prove descendancy, okay? And it's important to know, because a lot of these town clerks are very nice and the people they have working for them are very nice, but they don't know, I guess, the law, you would say. So there is a 50-year privacy for marriage, okay? I believe it's a 75-year privacy for birth, which I feel bad for my 90-year-old grandparents, because like anybody can access their birth record and their marriage record, but at this point, I don't really think they care. And I think death based on the town or based on the area is either right away or 25 years. Okay. And you can ask for a genealogy copy. A genealogy copy for a death record, what they're leaving out is the cause of death. Other than that, they have all the information that you're going to want. Some places will require that you send in a copy of your relationship to the deceased. So maybe you're doing like a great grandfather. They want to see like, okay, maybe your birth certificate that's naming your mom's death certificate that's, naming the link. And usually a picture of your driver's license. But that all depends on the town. Now, again, this is another area where you want to know the actual jurisdiction of an event. So and I'll talk about this too. If you're going for something like dual citizenship, I have my Italian dual citizenship. You need you need a certified copy of a long form. The long form is going to tell you pretty much more information. They might tell you the parent's occupation, the parent's birthday. And I always just, for the sake of getting more information, I always request long form. Okay. So request long form genealogy copy wherever you can. So it's really important too, to know the actual place where the event happened. So my great grandpa, when I was going for Italian citizenship, I had to get his death record. Now he had a fear of public speaking, and people were like, "You're fine. No one ever dropped dead from public speaking." Well, guess what? He did. He got up, getting a speech. He was getting an award for being the man of the year for some sportsman club, and he dropped dead of a heart attack. So in the bowling alley.
Be me.
That would be me. So I had to figure out, and they said I was having a really hard time finding it because he died in the bowling alley. He was in the ambulance, and then he was I guess his body was taken to the hospital. So he was pronounced dead in the ambulance, and they figured out where he was in the town, like while they were driving the ambulance. And I guess somebody looked at the town side and said, "Okay, we're in Dobbs Ferry. I have to register that here." Okay, so it was really challenging to find the exact place. And because I wasn't sure where the exact place is, I had to kind of like stalk and call a whole bunch of places saying like, "Hey, do you have this record?" Because I needed the exact jurisdiction for the death record. Same thing with my husband. He was born in St. Charles in Port Jeff. That, because it's Port Jeff, has their own village. It's separate from the town of Brookhaven. So his birth is not registered with the town of Brookhaven. His was with Port Jeff. So just be aware again of like those boundaries and jurisdiction areas. Now they have also too family history centers affiliated libraries. So sometimes if you're on like the website Family Search, you're going to see something that comes up with image available at a Family Search library. And it might in your head be like, "I don't have money to go to Utah and go look at this record." Well, there's Family Search libraries all over America. These are a few of them that are the closest to us. You can also, so I've been told, because I don't know about these libraries, some libraries and family history centers are closed. You can go and sit in their parking lot with your computer and you can access their internet and look at the records that you need. This again is important when I had mentioned earlier that all those records in microfilm are online for free at familysearch.org. So you can go to these places and check out those records. These are the National Archives. Before, as I had mentioned, when you're looking for information on the National Archives, feel free to take I'll send this to you so you don't even have to like go writing it down. But if you have questions about like those naturalization records, that's where you're going to want to look, is this website. And it also has in the National Archives, they have the vital records for New York City. Passenger records, naturalization, census records. And they're like I went there a couple of years ago and it's very official. You can spend like the whole day in there. It's pretty cool, but also like kind of intimidating. But if you ever get the chance, once it opens, go check out the New York National Archives on One Bowling Green. Another great place to go is the New York Public Library. They have a really good genealogy room with collections from all different states. And if you are a New York resident, you can gain access to it. You can gain access to their website. You go on there and you request a library card and you just send them your current driver's license and I think a utility bill. And they'll give you your New York Public Library card. And you can go in and you can access their historical newspaper collections, the state records, a whole bunch of really cool stuff. And Harborfields has like a really good genealogy collection themselves. If you go on their website, like they have a tab for genealogy, and I'm always impressed by it. I think so. Sue, great job on maintaining that. And then preparing for your visit. This was written before COVID. So to prepare for your visit, stay in your house and don't go. Call somebody. But anyway, what you'd want to do is you want to research, say you're going to an archive center. Go online, see what they offer, make a list of everything that you want before you go. Because you're going to go in there, like if you think going to a grocery store is bad without bringing your list, like going to an archive place is so much worse if you don't know what you're getting. Search any indexes that are already available online. Plan to spend the whole day there. You know, if you've never gone, plan to spend your whole day there. Be patient. The people there are trying to help you out. A lot of times they are volunteer themselves. Bring cash. Bring a pencil, because a lot of times they don't allow pens. Bring your ID and a notebook. You can bring a laptop. Sometimes they allow that, sometimes they don't. Call, especially now, you know, ask them, are you open? Do you have what's called reading hours, which is when it's available to the public? And also ask them if they have the actual records there. When I was in Pennsylvania, I was like, yes, they have all the records, but the records were actually in a warehouse, like far away. And I had to drive there. And like, I was, you know, nobody had been there for like 20 years. And I'm like, hi, can you please get this record down for me from this pitchfork here? So just be ready. Just be up for anything. Ask if you could take pictures on your phone before you have some angry person coming over and swatting your phone out of your hand and telling you, you know, delete this right now. This is federal property. So just be aware of their picture taking rules, and see if you can request records ahead of time and document your sources. That's really important because you're going to forget. So what I always do is I take, if it's in a book, I take a picture of the front page, the cover page, like the table of index, the copyright page, hello. And then the other pages I'm looking for, this is me taking a picture with my phone, by the way, of the actual page number that it is. So that's that. And just always remember, you know, we all have a story to tell. And we're really so much more than names, dates, and places. You know, really try to capture who your ancestors were as individuals, and the time period that they were in and what was going on in that area. You know, and don't forget to, like, don't just keep all the information yourself, like share it with others. And I see Erin has a question.
Yes, Sarah, you mentioned
Hi.
before, hi, you mentioned in the courthouse records.
Yeah.
That when a mother dies, that the father would have to file for custody. I'm looking for something that's like 1870 Brooklyn. Was that still the
That's
process
well,
then?
I mean, the one that I was looking at, I think was like 1840s.
Okay. And so you would go, if they were in Brooklyn, what courthouse? You would just go to?
I would
the
check
local-
out. So Brooklyn, they have like the Eastern District. I think that's where they are. The Eastern District, Kings County, and you could check out like the Orphans Court.
Okay. And what type of record, is that the name, is the name custody bond? Is that
Yeah, it
what
was
I
a
would
custody
ask
bond.
for?
Yep, a
Okay.
custody bond. Now this wasn't always, I don't know if that wasn't the, like on a state level. I mean, that was for Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if that's what was happening in New York at the time. So that might be something to research too. So what I would do is research custody bonds for deceased parents and see what would come up with that.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody?
I do.
Sure.
I'm wondering about unions.
Yes, good question. What kind of union?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So very, very long ago, which
Okay.
union in New York, probably New York City, Brooklyn, or somewhere like that.
Like a police or like a truck
Well,
driver union? Or what?
construction, I would say.
What I would do
A
is
carpentry construction worker.
the
So-
National Archives does have things like that.
I you know, the letters aren't coming to my head of what the, what it would be.
But
It's
you
so
could-
long ago.
Sure. Like what you could do is like my husband's part of the local 804 union. He's a UPS driver. So
Okay. I
what you
was in
could do,
teachers union. I am.
okay, yeah, you could like contact the union. So like what I would do is I would contact the truckers union and
Okay.
say, hey, you know, say I was looking for somebody in UPS for a long time ago and say, do you have anything with the pension plan? Okay, you're gonna look for the pension records of the
Oh.
with the union. And that is available. My grandfather was a toll collector on the Tappan Zee Bridge for 30 years. And he was with the Port Authority,
Mhm.
their pension, and you can get those, you know, you can try to figure out where those records are going to be.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
I think that,
Any other questions?
and
Sure.
I have sort of
And
a
thanks for
macabre
everything.
question.
I love
So
what-
I thought as part of helping my children in this time of COVID,
Yeah.
I would have my grave marker made,
Okay.
cremains, and I am trying to debate what to put on it. What is most important? Am I just online anyway? And in
Okay.
the cemetery record?
Can
in
I
the
tell you,
stone-
I fantasize always about what my son's going to look like. And I just had this conversation with some coworkers.
Good. I'm glad I'm not weird.
You're not. But I'm also not a great resource or reference to ask
Oh.
on. So, but
But if you
Your
are from the
last word.
point of view of tracing a record,
yes.
is,
Okay.
is my cemetery record going to be more important than the stone?
Yes, I am love this question. Love it. Okay. So first thing you want to do, did you already figure out where you want to be buried?
Well, there's a family plot and I have a space and it's a cremain. So I have a little, you know, I have a little stone.
So what you want to do is now I'll really fast. My parents bought, there was like a new cemetery going up by the house and there was a sale. So my mom bought 4 plots.
Mhm.
And my sisters were so mad because she assumed they were going to die alone and be with her. So they're not really that nice sometimes. So, you know, like it's understandable. But so anyway, what you're going to want to have is, I mean, if you can like, how is it big or not really big?
No, it's a cremain marker. I think it's 2 feet by 3 feet.
Okay.
And I'm willing to buy my husband one because he doesn't care. So I'll put as much as I want on this.
Yeah. I mean, definitely your full birthday. And I would do maiden name too, you know?
Me
like,
too. I said, I want 4 names.
Yes.
And he said, oh, have you been divorced a couple of times?
No, put it on there.
I want yeah.
When I go to these genealogy conferences, they have people who have like beautiful headstones that you can like order. And like I told my husband, I'm like, I'm coming home with one. He's like, you can't. He's like, you need to bring a carry-on. Like, what are you gonna do? So but they do have online too. You can order your headstone and you have your family tree on your headstone, which is like
Too
a dream.
small.
But I would do full name with maiden name, full birthday, full death day. I mean, if you can put even like the place of birth, like that's really cool. And sometimes even people will sometimes also put like daughter of blah, 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 wife of, but if he's right next to you, you can figure that out. And then make sure the cemetery has a copy of the headstone papers.
What do you mean of the headstone papers?
So when you order the headstone, it's usually separate through the actual cemetery.
Right, from a monument.
Yeah,
Company.
you give them the monument.
Okay.
paperwork,
Thank you.
and they can have that in the file.
Thank you. I'm
You're
glad to know I'm not weird. Or
No,
that
it's
weird.
really scary that I do know way too much about this. I've been calling. There's my aunt and uncle had moved, but they always lived across the street from the cemetery, and we would like, you know, have our family events at their house, and it was always nice. But I've been calling the cemetery, pretending I have like a terminal illness, and I'm like, I want to reserve a spot, and they're like, no, stop calling us.
I've reserved a spot.
Yeah, they're like, you're not a member. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I need to be a member? Like, so, drop dead in the cemetery. So
Okay, so I have another weird question. I intend to be cremated,
okay.
but is there any reason to leave some DNA?
Have you left DNA? Like,
No,
Your
I
hair.
haven't.
have you taken DNA sample?
No, not yet.
I
I
mean,
mean, but if I did like 21 and whatever it is,
do
and
Ancestry because they're better with like, so they can,
Ancestry.
yeah. Mhm.
So I would have left a record if I do that?
Yeah, and can you please call my grandparents and tell them the importance of doing this? Because I always like trying to get my grandpa.
Who is this weird woman?
Please spit into this tube. Like it will help everyone. And they said in the next 3 years, people are going to be able to send their postage stamps in and extract DNA from that. And that's going to be really cool. Then you can compare yourself to like your ancestors who passed away. I'm just checking the time. I have to run soon because I have to go pick up my son for an allergist appointment.
I have one comment.
Sure.
On the back of my parents' headstone, I put the first and middle name of all 4 of the children. So on the front is all her information, and on the back is the oldest sister. Nothing else, just their full names though, so that anybody who goes looking will know at least that much.
That's awesome.
That is.
Yeah, great
Oh
idea.
man, I'm putting you in charge of mine. All right.
Thank you
Sarah?
so much, Sarah.
Oh my.
Yeah,
I
thank
wanted
you
to-
very much.
I'd like to thank Sarah for joining us today and presenting. And for anyone who wants to know, the next program is on Monday, February 22nd, also at 2 p.m. And it is Benvenuti Italiani, conducting Italian genealogy research and obtaining dual Italian-American citizenship. So until next month, thank you again, Sarah.
Thank you. so
And
much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for having me. And I put the information in the
Where?
chat here. If anybody has any questions. And also if you're on Facebook, you can befriend me at the Family Tree Climber. And I say when all my schedules are and everything. So thank you, everybody. It's always so nice talking to you. And Sue, thank you so much for hosting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Oh,
Did everyone have a chance to write down the information that Sarah put in the chat?
Oh.
I have notes all over the place at this point, and I hope I took down enough. I have to look through it. I was trying to scribble so fast and take pictures of the screen, but I
I did
missed-
record this session, so
Oh, you
we have to
did?
we have to process the recording, and then I should be able to send you a link if you're interested.
Oh, all right. So we should
Doesn't,
just contact you then. Susan, is it? Are you Susan?
Joan, yes.
Oh, okay. Hi. Yeah.
You had a question, Judy?
doesn't Sarah send us her presentation? Didn't she do
The
that?
PowerPoint?
The
the PowerPoint?
PowerPoint, yeah.
I can ask her for it and make sure that we do get it.
She mentioned it. I thought maybe she was doing that.
Okay, I can definitely ask her for it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to say
Thank
goodbye
you.
now.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.